words from the father and husband, John Gant. My name is John Gant, and I've honestly been blessed to be Carol's husband and the father of Hannah, Louise, and Amy. And when I ask myself, like, how you managed to fool all of us, I keep coming back to the same thing. You're a psychopath who, you know, spent all that time next to Louise pretending to be a normal person. You saved your best, totally made up version of yourself for those moments when you were in our home. You somehow kept up that fake image of being a decent guy during the first year of your relationship with Louise, but by the beginning of 2024, you just couldn't do it anymore. The screams from hell, Kyle, oh my God, I can still kind of hear them. They're basically rolling out the red carpet for you now. And when the person you could have been finally meets the person you actually are, you're going to realize this. You know, your miserable fate is going to last forever. Before we get into the story, I just want to ask you guys, oh my God, please support the channel, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and if you feel like it, share it with someone. It seriously helps this whole project grow and lets us dig into even more investigations. And while you're watching this, drop a comment and tell me where you're from and what the weather's like over there right now. All right, now let's get into the story itself. And trust me, this one is, like, honestly chilling to the bone. Louise Gant, a 25-year-old groomer, ran her own small business right out of a little garden shed in her parents' backyard. She had loved animals ever since she was a kid, and eventually that turned into a steady job she was really proud of. Everyone who knew her well described Louise as independent and self-sufficient, someone who wasn't afraid to take on new challenges and build her success with her own hands. She was gentle, but at the same time, oh my God, super energetic, hardworking, organized, and as her friends used to say, crazy determined. Kyle Clifford, who was 24 back then, was a former soldier who'd just come back to civilian life after a short period of service. He tried hard to come off as calm and disciplined, like, you know, the kind of stable, reliable guy any woman could trust. With Louise especially, he tried to show softness and openness, talked about his feelings, and really pushed this image of a man ready for a serious relationship. And at first, everything looked pretty harmonious. The beginning of their relationship seemed normal, even kind of promising. They spent a lot of time together, made plans, and from the outside it all looked stable. But only a few months passed before the first red flags started popping up. Louise's friends admitted they noticed how Kyle would sometimes get overly controlling or react weirdly whenever she tried to be independent. Eventually, Louise herself started talking about it more openly. She told one friend that Kyle had a terrible temper, and told another that being with him left her feeling drained, like he was sucking the life out of her, little by little, day after day. His behavior was all over the place. One moment he was possessive and jealous for no real reason, and the next moment he was totally distant. On one hand, he wanted control and constant attention. On the other hand, he let himself flirt with other women. And it wasn't just harmless flirting. Kyle was signing up for dating apps like Hinge and Bumble while he was still in a relationship with Louise. He hid it, deleted messages, lied about meeting other women, and when she caught him lying or confronted him directly, he would either shut the conversation down instantly or blow up in anger, acting like he was somehow the real victim. Louise started pulling away emotionally. She tried, really gently asking for a little space, some time for herself, because the whole situation was just draining her. But Kyle took even that like a personal attack. His reaction was sharp, way over the top, full of tension and insults. In June of 2024, after 1.5 years of exhausting, up and down relationship drama, Louise finally made the hard, but absolutely necessary decision to officially end things. Her message to him was soft, thoughtful, but also very clear and final. She wrote, "I'm sorry, Kyle, but I feel like I can't continue what we have. I feel like everything is broken, and I can't ignore how I feel. Please take care of yourself." This happened on June 26th, and literally just a few hours later, Kyle showed up online and dove into a series of searches that, oh my God, basically screamed dangerous intent. He was looking for things that could hurt not just one person, but an entire family and ultimately shock their whole community. Louise's family had never fully trusted him. Her sister Hannah described Kyle as arrogant, rude, and just unpleasant to talk to. Her mother, Carol, sensed from the very beginning that something about him felt fake. She said that behind all his polite words, there was immaturity, childishness, and zero desire to take real responsibility. They, like many people in Louise's close circle, had no way of knowing what he would be capable of at his darkest moment. But deep down, they felt something was off about him. And unfortunately, their instincts turned out to be horrifyingly accurate. And still, despite who Kyle truly was, Louise's family treated him with respect and sincerity. They never pushed him away, even when they felt something about him wasn't right. He celebrated Christmas with them, sat at their dinner table, got gifts, showed up in their family photos. To Carol, Louise's mum, he looked like a potential future son-in-law, and she welcomed him into her home with warmth, hospitality, and the kind of gentle politeness her family was known for. But behind the scenes, things were completely different. Louise kept notes in her phone about Kyle's behaviour, not to show anyone, but just to help herself stay grounded in reality. She recorded the things he said and did, that he expressed racist views, made openly hostile comments about transgender people, and used harsh, degrading language that hurt her and tore her down. These weren't some tiny, everyday arguments or the usual complaints people have about their partners. This was, oh my god, a whole series of warning signs, deep red flags, showing emotional control, superiority, and this inner anger that kept slipping out every now and then. And even with all that, Louise, like so many people stuck in toxic relationships, didn't feel like she was in direct danger. To her, it felt more like exhaustion, this constant tension she just couldn't shake. She knew the relationship was hurting her, but she had no idea how far things could actually go. She just felt like around Kyle, she was slowly fading little by little, like her light was getting dimmer with every day. After the breakup, her family, especially her sisters, finally breathed a sigh of relief. They had seen for a long time that nothing good was coming from that relationship. Amy, her older sister, later said, "He just couldn't be the person she needed. You could see that from a mile away." And despite the pain, despite all the messed up dynamics, Louise still stayed kind. She didn't burn bridges, didn't yell, didn't cause drama. She even agreed to meet with him on July 9th so he could pick up his stuff. She honestly believed he had accepted the breakup like an adult, calmly. Her mum, Carol, believed that too. That day, like always, she opened the door for him and greeted him with that same warm smile she gave everyone who walked into her home. But something inside Kyle had shifted after the breakup. And at the same time, it was painfully clear that those dark beliefs, those dangerous ideas, they had been living in him long before any of this. They didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were building, growing, simmering. And now, after he lost control over Louise, they finally had an excuse to burst out. And despite how emotional things looked from the outside, what he did next was not some impulsive, heat-of-the-moment reaction. This wasn't a blind wave of anger. This was cold, calculated, and, oh my god, meticulously planned. On June 30th, only a few days after Louise told him it was over, his online searches took him into categories most people would never even consider. He started researching crossbows. Specifically, he picked a model priced at £350, a serious weapon, not some toy. It came with 6 bolts and a cocking device that let you load the crossbow without much physical effort. But that wasn't the end of it. His plan was much bigger, which meant he needed more tools. He bought duct tape, rope, a meat processing knife, which, in this context, is just terrifying to even think about, plus 2 containers of gasoline, and the scariest thing he purchased, a pneumatic handgun. He didn't get it delivered in time, but the fact that he even ordered it shows just how huge and dark his intentions were. At the same time, Kyle was looking up how alcohol can act as an accelerant, making a fire spread out of control. This wasn't some random curiosity. This was, clearly part of the plan he was building step by step. Around that same period, he left this strange, unsettling note on his phone, like he was talking to himself. "Nothing I can imagine will make me happy. I know I could go to therapy, find faith, and become a better person, but I just don't want to." That message showed more than despair. It showed a complete refusal to change, a conscious decision to walk straight into the darkness. Kyle also searched for horse racing today. Investigators believe he wanted to know whether John Hunt, Louise's father and a well-known BBC horse racing commentator, would be working that day. He needed to know who would be home and who wouldn't. John Hunt's voice is recognisable to millions. As a long-time, highly respected BBC horse racing commentator, He's earned tremendous respect and has a brilliant reputation. But the role he loved the most was being a father. Together with Carol, he built a warm home in Bushey, Hertfordshire, where they raised their 3 daughters, Hannah, Louise, and Amy. Carol, 61 years old, with a kind heart and incredible intuition, was the quiet anchor of the family. She always sensed her daughters' emotions, always tried to shield them from pain. Hannah, 28, a cosmetologist, was known for her strength, her sharp personality, and her fierce loyalty to her loved ones. And she protected Louise, her younger sister, with everything she had. Louise, at 25, was bright, energetic, independent, and passionate about her grooming business. And Amy, the oldest, even though she lived separately, always stayed close. The Hunts were one of those families who were like bonded to the bone. Together, the Hunts were the kind of family that always had each other's backs during happy moments, during struggles, during holidays, and even on the most ordinary days. They lived with love, mutual respect, and that simple, genuine happiness that only comes from truly close families. And I can imagine that when a family reaches a certain level of comfort and stability, you start to feel like nothing bad could ever really happen to you. Like your home is its own little world, safe from anything threatening. That's exactly how it felt for the Hunts' warm routines. A peaceful rhythm, familiar evenings together, and that sharp, brutal contrast between their calm, almost idyllic life and what happened that day is what makes this story, oh my god, so chilling. It freezes your blood. By July 9th, Kyle was already carrying out his plan step by step. No doubts, no hesitation. He was moving forward with this cold, calculated confidence. That day, he hid the crossbow under a blanket on the back seat of his car so no one would notice. He dressed in the most ordinary way, nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. His movements were quiet, measured, almost mechanical. At 2:32 p.m, he turned into a small, cosy cul-de-sac where the Hunt family home stood in Bushey, Hertfordshire. It was the kind of neighbourhood where almost everyone knew one another, where life moved calmly, without drama or trouble. That's why seeing his car there didn't raise any suspicions he had visited before, and everyone knew that. At that same moment, Louise was in her backyard grooming shed, working as a dog groomer. She was busy with the dogs, greeting clients, doing what she loved. She had no idea that Kyle had already slipped into their family home and was now standing inside, waiting. The silence in the house concealed him just as easily as it once held the warmth of their family life. Carol unlocked the door shortly after 2:30 p.m. She was exactly the way she always was. Welcoming, attentive, warm. She smiled, greeted him, asked something polite. And just a few seconds after the door closed, the home security system picked up a muffled scream, short, abrupt, like someone tried to call for help but didn't get the chance. Kyle attacked immediately. He struck Carol over and over her arms, her knees, her back, her chest. It was a brutal, sudden assault. She didn't have even the slightest chance to defend herself. It all happened so fast and so unexpectedly that even if she had tried to run or shout again, there would have been no time. Within moments, the house fell silent again, a heavy, hollow, unnatural silence. And he just stood there, waiting for the next victim. At 3:07 p.m, he walked out to his car. Calmly, without rushing. He took the crossbow from under the blanket. Then, he walked back inside, quietly, methodically, just as coldly as he had only minutes earlier. The house had now become a trap he had prepared ahead of time. A little more than an hour passed. Louise finished her work and stepped out of her little grooming shed, just like she always did. She crossed the yard and walked into the house, through the patio doors, her usual route. Nothing out of the ordinary, but as soon as she took a few steps inside, Kyle attacked her. He moved fast and without mercy. He taped her ankles and wrists with duct tape. He restrained her completely, leaving her unable to move. And what happened next was so brutal, so inhuman, that words feel far too weak to describe the horror. What Louise went through lasted almost 3 hours, endless hours of hell, with no chance to escape and no way to call for help. And, as if that wasn't enough, Kyle did something else that showed just how twisted his thinking was. He took Louise's phone, he typed a message to her father, John Hunt, something that was supposed to look casual. "What time will you be home?" John, not suspecting anything, replied, "Late, I'm afraid. Everything okay, love?" That love a word her father had written literally thousands of times should have instantly exposed the truth to any normal person. But for Kyle, it was just another part of his plan. At 6:50 p.m, Hannah came home. She walked in right after work, still in her cosmetologist uniform, tired, just thinking about finally relaxing at home. She stepped inside like she always did, having no idea she was crossing into a house where something unimaginable had already happened. And like always, she called out, "Mum? Louise?" There was a pause. The silence hanging in the air was heavy and unsettling. Hannah stood inside the house, staring down the dark hallway, trying to understand why everything felt so weirdly quiet, why no one was answering her usual greeting. And then her intuition, the kind that has saved people countless times, told her something was terribly wrong. Slowly, almost without realizing it, she stepped back and reached for her phone. Without panicking, but with this overwhelming tension inside her, she sent a message to her boyfriend, Alexa Clen. It contained only a few words, short, broken, but charged with absolute desperation. "Call the police right now. Come to me now. Kyle is here. Police now. He's tying us up." Those words were her final plea for help, and at the same time, a decisive act, a desperate attempt to break free from the trap that had closed around her and her family. Only 2 minutes passed after she hit send, and right at that moment, Kyle shot her. The arrow struck her in the back, tearing through her body with brutal precision. Despite a fatal wound, Hannah showed almost superhuman strength. She managed to dial 999. In unbearable pain, shock, and fighting for every breath, she still told the operator the name of the man who attacked her. It was her final act of courage. Police arrived within minutes, practically instantly, considering the horror that was unfolding inside that house. But by the time they stepped through the door, the evil had already run its course. By then, Carol and Louise were dead, and Hannah died shortly after emergency responders arrived, never recovering from the devastating injury and the brutality she had endured. Inside the home, officers found 3 empty vodka bottles left on a cabinet. Investigators believed Kyle either tried to destroy evidence or intended to use alcohol as an accelerant, but for some reason, his plan never went beyond that. Kyle himself was gone. He vanished, just as quietly as he had appeared, slipping away into the world, leaving behind chaos and blood. It's impossible to overstate what Hannah Hunt did in the final minutes of her life. She had come home expecting a normal evening dinner, conversations with her mum and sister, simple everyday things. Instead, she walked straight into the worst nightmare a person could ever imagine. And even though everything happened suddenly, she reacted almost instantly. No panic, no loss of focus. She understood the danger and she started acting. The home security system captured her voice, tense but strong. "Kyle, I swear to God." It wasn't just a cry of fear, it was a warning, a readiness to fight, a final attempt to protect whoever was still alive. Then came the sound of her phone. Quick taps on the screen, a short, desperate message to Alex that later became crucial for the police response. That message, along with the 999 call, essentially saved lives. Because of her, police arrived immediately and already knew who the attacker was, that he was armed with a crossbow, and that he likely intended to kill a 4th person. Investigators later said that Hannah's actions directly stopped further tragedy, including a 4th potential victim, her father John. And John himself confirmed this, not even trying to hide his emotions. In court, through tears and a trembling voice, he said, "I firmly believe that if she hadn't shown such incredible physical and moral strength, I would have been the 4th victim that day. Her courage in those final moments is the reason he is still alive. She gave her own life to do something only a rare few could ever do."
The whole place went crackers. There was loads of police cars turned up. There was police out here in black outfits with and all the rest of it, all in the street here. And literally there was just police cars all down here, all over there. And it was ambulance, was people in pink stuff, they all went down, and there was everything going on. It was amazing. And then with noise upstairs, you know, I think the helicopters and everything just started. It just happened all of a sudden. It just went like it was an explosion. Everything happened. And that's all I can say. And they locked off the street and they stopped everybody getting through. And as far as I know, it's always a very quiet area here. Nothing ever goes on here. It's very unusual. It's very, very peaceful and very quiet.
The family's neighbours left stunned that something so terrible could have happened just yards away.
It's horrific. I have to go to work. I have to, we have to do our day-to-day job. But it does affect you, and it's at the back of your mind. It's right on your doorstep.
She's told to go inside there because there might be a man on the loose there with a crossbow. So we all went upstairs and kept on popping our head like most of the neighbours there through the windows kind of thing there, so a bit of window watching.
I mean, what was that like on a normal evening, being told there's a man with a crossbow nearby?
It's on the...
After Kyle Clifford fled the Hunt family home, he travelled nearly 20 miles north all the way to Lavender Hill Cemetery in Enfield. There, sometime after 10 p.m, he aimed that same crossbow at himself and fired. It didn't have the effect he wanted. He survived, but now he was paralysed from the chest down.
This evening, there was major police activity at a cemetery in the Enfield area. Armed police and an emergency helicopter involved. The scale of it all, testament to the fact that finding the alleged triple killer had become a national police priority.
Throughout the next 10 weeks, Kyle remained in the hospital under round-the-clock police guard. Only after that was he considered stable enough to be questioned. When investigators finally sat down with him, they got nothing. He kept repeating the same thing, no comment, no explanation, no apology. But privately, early in his treatment, he did say, "What I did was horrible." Yet in the official interviews, complete silence. When they asked him about the note he left on his phone, the one addressed to himself, Kyle seemed to swallow hard but still refused to explain anything. That note included lines like, "Please don't think of this as me throwing my life away. I know you'll have a lot of questions and you'll wish you could have changed something to stop this from happening, but none of you are to blame."
The next note is addressed to myself. I don't want to live my life without her. I don't want to experience new things. Nothing I can think of can make me happy. I know I could have gone to therapy, found faith, and become a new, better person, but I just simply don't want to. I'm so sorry I didn't wait to move on and find my future wife, have the children I always wanted. What do you mean by that?
No comment.
Explain to me why you decided to deprive Hannah and Louise of that privilege.
No comment.
What gave you the right to do that?
No comment.
What gave you the right to deprive Carol of seeing her future grandchildren?
No comment.
It's a very self-centred note and doesn't take into account anybody else. Do you agree with that?
No comment.
There's no apology to the Hunt family, is there?
No comment.
The only apology is to yourself. It wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a loss of control. You didn't go to the address and all of a sudden form this intent to kill Carol, kill Louise, kill Hannah. You'd gone there with that sole intention in mind.
The investigators pressed further. "Were you already planning the murders when you wrote that note?" He just whispered, "No comment."
Except, Kyle, that based on the evidence, that this is a premeditated murder of 3 people.
No comment.
Do you accept that you have meticulously planned this murder from the moment that you split up the Louise?
No comment.
Kyle Clifford never gave testimony in court. He refused to appear regarding the crimes against Louise and even refused to attend his own sentencing. In his absence, the Hunt family spoke in his place. John and Amy stood before the judge and everyone in the courtroom to say what needed to be said. Through tears, Amy said, "What you did to my little sister is pure demonic evil. You earned your place in hell."
The most loveliest human being. She was just so supportive and, yeah, just an amazing person.
Mia Grono-Marty was best friends with Louise Hunt. They were about to go on holiday together. Instead, she's now grieving.
What made her so special?
She would just never say a bad word about anyone, and she was just so understanding of just any kind of situation, just such a nice person. I just don't think I've ever met just such a nice person, ever. And I just, obviously just not good.
The judge began with Carol. You killed Carol first, a woman who, even that day, treated you with nothing but kindness right before you attacked her. Then he addressed Louise. You raped and murdered her. She was so caring as she tried to end the relationship after your arrogance and rage became unbearable for her. And then the judge continued. You killed Hannah, who had done nothing to you except protect her sister. A heavy silence filled the courtroom as the judge described Kyle as a man, steeped in self-pity and consumed by violent misogyny. A man who despised women, a man who believed his fragile ego mattered more than their lives. The judge called Louise, Hannah, and Carol examples of quiet heroism, women who lived with kindness and courage, whose bravery, especially in their final moments, may have saved others. But Cal Clifford wasn't there to hear any of this. He had refused to attend the sentencing, just as he refused to appear in court or give testimony. Yet it didn't matter. These words were for the family. For John and Amy, standing there holding each other's hands as the sentence was read, for the police and investigators who had worked tirelessly to bring the case to court, and for the memory of the three women, Carol, Louise, and Hannah, whose lives were taken by a man unworthy of the humanity they had shown him.
There may be cases where a guilty plea should lead the court to draw back from imposing a whole life order. I have considered and rejected that course, as the factors in favour of such an order are so compelling that they far outweigh all those pieces of mitigation. I am left in no doubt that this is a sentence I must impose. The sentences I pass are therefore: for possession of an offensive weapon, the crossbow, 1 year's imprisonment, concurrent. For the possession of an offensive weapon, the knife, 1 year's imprisonment, concurrent. For the murder of Carol Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order, the early release provisions are not to apply. For the false imprisonment of Louise Hunt, 8 years imprisonment, concurrent. For the rape of Louise Hunt, 20 years imprisonment, concurrent. For the murder of Louise Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order. The early release provisions are not to apply. For the murder of Hannah Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order. The early release provisions are not to apply.
On the day of sentencing, Judge Benethan broke with tradition. He didn't start by reviewing the case, he went straight to the punishment. Not wanting to keep the family in suspense, he handed down 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole right away. 3 lives taken. 3 lives that Cal Clifford will pay for until his very last breath. He will never see freedom again. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.